it's not put in a proper 4-line format. And then I come here and I see they only use part of it. So anyway, I'll try my best, but I guess you're only going to have to chant that part of it. Eshu Purusanam Ayutta Purusayorvasanam Deva Kapanam Nagayutta Prananam Vrajasambhana Vavavaya Moda Pramudita Mahasurata Mituna Diyaraya Parvarga Varsadritaka Vara Kalantranam Tatra Tutrita Yuga Shamakalo Vartate. So, you can chant. Somebody has to chant. It's like, if anybody has the book and can chant the whole verse properly, that would be wonderful. Or I can give you the book and you can chant the whole verse properly. I can.
What you told?
Wait a minute, I can't hear you. Wait, I'm turning up the volume here because I can't hear you. You can do it? Okay, that's great. And wait, you should come up here and use the microphone so that everybody can hear you.
Eshu Purushanam Purushayurvarshanam Devakalpanam Nagayuta Pranam Vrajasamhana Balaya Vayu Moda Pramodita Moha Saurata Mituna Vyaya Varga Varshadrataika Garbhakalatranam Tadratu Tretayuga Samasa Kalo Vartate.
You gave it your best shot.
Yeah.
So go to the easier part, word for word. Eshu. In these 8 varsas are tracts of land. Purushanam, all of the men. Ayuta, 10,000. Purusha, by the measure of men. Ayu Varsanam, of those whose years of life. Deva Kalpanam, who are like demigods. Nagayuta Prananam, having the strength of 10,000 elephants. Vajra Samhanana, by bodies as solid as thunderbolts. Bala, by bodily strength. Vaya, by youth. Moda, by abundant sense enjoyment. Pramudita, being excited. Mahasurata, a great deal of sexual. Mithuna, combinations of man and woman. Vyavayaparga, at the end of their period of sexual enjoyment. Varsha, in the last year. Nrita Eka Garbha, who conceive one child. Kalatranam, of those who have wives. Tatra, there. To, but. Treta Yuga Sama, exactly like the Treta Yuga, when there is no tribulation. Kala, time. Vartate, exists. Translation. In these 8 varshas are tracts of land. Human beings live 10,000 years according to earthly calculations. All the inhabitants are almost like demigods. They have bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. Indeed, their bodies are as sturdy as thunderbolts. The youthful duration of their lives is very pleasing, and both men and women enjoy sexual union with great pleasure for a long time. After years of sensual pleasure, when a balance of 1 year of life remains, the wife conceives a child. Thus, the standard of pleasure for residents of these heavenly regions is exactly like that of the human beings who lived during Treta Yuga. The purport. There are 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. During the first Yuga, Satya Yuga, people were very pious. Everyone practiced the mystic yoga system for spiritual understanding and realization of God. Because everyone was always absorbed in samadhi, no one was interested in material sense enjoyment. During Treta Yuga, people enjoyed sense pleasure without tribulations. Material miseries began in Dwapara Yuga, but they were not very stringent. Stringent material miseries really began from the advent of Kali Yuga. Another point in this verse is that in all 8 of these heavenly varshas, although men and women enjoy sex pleasure, there is no pregnancy. Pregnancy takes place only in lower grade of life. For example, animals like dogs and hogs become pregnant twice a year, and each time they beget at least half a dozen offspring. Even lower species of life, such as snakes, give birth to hundreds of young at one time. This verse informs us that in grades of life higher than ours, pregnancy occurs once in a lifetime. People still have sex life, but there is no pregnancy. In the spiritual world, people are not very attracted to sex life due to their exalted devotional attitude. Practically speaking, there is no sex life in the spiritual world, but even if sometimes it does occur, there is no pregnancy at all. On the Earth planet, however, human beings do become pregnant, although the tendency is to avoid having children. In this sinful age of Kali, people have even taken to the process of killing the child in the womb. This is the most degraded practice. It can only perpetuate the miserable condition, material conditions of those who perform it. Can please repeat. In these 8 varshas are tracts of land. Human beings live 10,000 years, according to earthly calculations. In all of the inhabitants are almost like demigods. They have the bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. Indeed, their bodies are as sturdy as thunderbolts. The youthful duration of their lives is very pleasing, and both men and women enjoy sexual union with great pleasure for a long time. After years of sensual pleasure, when a balance of 1 year of life remains, the wife conceives a child. Thus, the standard of pleasure for the residents of these heavenly regions is exactly like that of human beings who lived during Treta Yuga. Om Yantirandasya Nanasha Kavaya Chatu Militum Jena Tasmi Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Anshikalpatrubhyascha krita sindhuvyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So in the previous verse there was a mention of the 3 divisions of the heavenly planets, Divya Varga, Bhoma Swarga, and Bila Swarga. And in those particular regions, which are very exalted places, there's durations of life that even exceed the duration of life that is mentioned here. Here we are hearing the 10,000 years in the human calculation. And what are these people doing during that time is quite amazing, given our perspective as devotees who are trying to refrain from agitating the senses and controlling the senses and keeping ourselves in the mood of being the enjoyed and not the enjoyer. So in this particular verse, we're hearing about another type of situation where people live a really long time, and during that time they're having what appears to be unlimited sexual pleasure, and there's somewhat of a bonus because they don't get pregnant. And then in the very last year of their life, the pregnancy occurs. So in the Swargas, which are like transitory places for pious souls who didn't quite purify themselves fully in this lifetime. So fully purification means in order to attain Vaikuntha, to go back home, back to Godhead. But somehow these persons didn't fully complete, although they are pious persons. I think in the letter to Jayananda Prabhu, after his passing, quite extraordinary, because after his passage, Srila Prabhupada wrote him this letter. And perhaps you have gone back to Godhead, or even if you didn't, then you can go, if you had some material desires left, you can go to heavenly planets and enjoy, and then come back and finish. But then but I think you have gone back to God yet. But Prabhupada gave that, alluded to the heavenly planets that are filled with this unlimited pleasure, ability. But even with that, there's some limitation because then, 10,000 years and in the last year of those, and the years are going by quickly, just like our years are going by quickly. And then they conceive a child. So these heavenly planets, these places, the bodies are not exactly like our bodies. I read something just yesterday where a person was questioning Srila Prabhupada about bodies in different spheres. So he was thinking, okay, they're not like our bodies, so does that mean all the elements aren't there? And Prabhupada said, no, they're all there. But so it means the earth element is there, fire, water, ether, etc. But in different degradations or different proportions. So what is absent is like some of the immediate reminders of material life. So these heavenly planets are a material sphere, just like in the Swargalok, or Indralok, the abode of the demigods. There's no suffering, there's no fear, there's no old age, or no other faults. In fact, it is the topographical layout is quite beautiful with the coral palace. The palace of Indra is made of coral with emerald floors, crystal walls, Vaiduria pillars. The seating places are diamonds and rubies, which I was thinking, well, that would be kind of uncomfortable. Then I realized, well, it's of course because I was relating to this lump of ignorance here. Silk beds with sheets are white and soft as foam, marble doorways, gold-plated doors, flags with pearls and golden stitches. So that was their kind of quality of life. There were many airplanes. And so, everybody in that atmosphere was very beautiful and dressed nicely. And the residents were apsaras, heavenly damsels, gandharvikas, celestial musicians. And then it was interesting, it mentions that there were no atheists, but of course, in such a level of existence, that wouldn't be there. And one of the other signatures of Swargaloka that is decorated with forms of Vishnu. So there were no atheists. And also there were no criminals, so when there's no criminals, there's no crime. So no jealousy or violence, no false pride, no lust, anger, no greed, no fraud. And these people, their lifespan, I read, was 3,600,000 years. It was quite, incomprehensible. If any of you are familiar with Srinanda Nanana, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, he's known more so by his name Stephen Knapp, because he's an author, and he has just multitudes of books, over 24 books. And he goes and studies and gets all kinds of information in order to educate the public at large about the Vedic civilization and Vedic values. And I started to read, how they calculate the lifetimes and these lifetimes in the life of Brahman, etc. And even, this was supposed to be so people could understand it, but I got even more bewildered. This extremely long durations of life, and I was discussing this with somebody yesterday, and she told me that, in addition, their bodies don't appear to age. Although, just like Lord Brahma, he's eventually going to take a departure, although he has this incredible lifetime, and one day of Brahma is just, beyond our understanding. But even eventually, Brahma will leave that post, he'll vacate his post. But they're always looking in a they're not getting wrinkles, or teeth don't seem to fall out, the hair doesn't fall out and turn gray. But I was told that the only indication is this: when these celestial demigods are born, you say celestial beings, they're born with a garland. They come with a garland at birth. And the only indication that their time is coming is that the garland starts to wilt. So I don't know if anybody's heard, she heard that during a class and she couldn't verify it. So I hope I'm not repeating a fallacy here. But I thought it was, quite interesting. So then they see, we're looking in the mirror like, oh, there's a wrinkle there, tooth fell out, and they're just, oh, the garland's slightly wilting. So then they realize, but still they have the capacity to go on and enjoy it. So, so then above this Indralok, or Divyalok, then you have the Maharaj on the top of Satyalok. So above that is, Brahmalok, so just imagine that lifetime. And it's mentioned that there's, I got this from Bhagavatam, 48,000 rishis are living there in Satyalok, and they're always engaged in meditation, absorbed in it, fully absorbed in it. To be fully absorbed is what we would like to be in terms of remembering Krishna and chanting the holy name. Because when you're fully absorbed, there's no room for anything else to seep in. We take a great deal of effort to try to chant offensively, try to chant attentively, and as we're making that effort in and of itself, it's an intrusion on the actual purity of the chanting. So when you're fully absorbed, then there's not this distraction. Sometimes people will say Srila Prabhupada was focused. Actually, he wasn't focused, because focus is an activity that, means you're trying to put yourself in a certain spot or a certain consciousness. Prabhupada was there. He was fully absorbed, always in the wonderful pastimes of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and Krishna's holy name. So they're trying to become absorbed in order to achieve moksha, or liberation, to go to the spiritual world, because they're in the elevated situation, but they're not quite in the spiritual world. So there's 48,000 rishis there trying to do that. And the other thing is that the capital of the Swargalok is Amaravati, and it was created by Vishwakarma, one of the other exalted sons of Lord Brahma. And then there was mentioned also this Bilu Yoga, Swarga, and that is like a lower, it's like somewhat of a hellish place, but it's for people who, they're a little pious, but not pious enough to get to like Divyalok, or Boma Swarga. Boma Swarga is considered to be by many near Kashmir. It's the earthly heaven, as near as heaven you can get on earth. That's the Boma Swarga. So the Bilu Swarga is below that, and it's dark, and the only light is coming from jewels on the head of serpents, but the serpents aren't biting anybody. So. Anyway, this Prabhupada gives some reference here to the Kali Yuga. And of course, I think if we went around the room, everybody could say something about Kali Yuga, and we would not repeat ourselves, because it is described as what? An ocean of faults. And of course, in the material world and for the material mind, faults are just, overwhelmingly abundant. For persons who are really diseased, they are taking great pleasure, false pleasure, in revealing faults of them, faults of others, faults of the situation, faults of ISKCON, But actually, that's just one of the unfortunate defects of Kali Yuga. It says in the Bhagavatam that actually, now we look at persons, and although the society is so degraded and just any type of virtue is being destroyed or even looked down upon, as Kali Yuga advances, and then we can see this happening now, that persons are going to be judged according to their financial status. So, no money, no status. Even in Srila Prabhupada's poem, Vrindavan Days, he mentions, how he's just, his family he's of no use to the family. He has no money, he has, so the family is like, what's the use of this guy? So that's already been happening. And then, of course, giving up marriage altogether. Of course, in one level, people are giving up marriage, and then you have another whole crew of society fighting so that they can get married, referring to now the practice of marriage between people who are practicing homosexuality. They want the right to get married. That's the right, they think, as equality. But on the other side, people are just not even bothering to get married. So everything's like a mess there. And so the relationships will actually depend. If there's a relationship, it's going to depend on sexual expertise. And the only sign of brahminical qualities will be some string, some thread, hung around the neck, hung around the shoulder. Word jugglery will be considered as scholarship. Somebody can mix up their words. Oh, great scholar. What did they say? I don't know. I couldn't understand them. So he must be very learned. And then if you don't have money, you'll actually be considered unholy. The sadhus, they have the money. Even in ISKCON, some people say, if you want the money, go to the sannyasis. There's that perception. And virtue will be defined through hypocrisy, damba. That will be seen as a virtue in Kali. And it says, beauty will be equated with a hairstyle. And a full belly, this will be the goal of life. It almost seems comical. Again, this is serious. This is right from the Bhagavatam, And then the families, family life, what is remaining of it, is going to be decimated by corrupt and ruthless rulers. And wow, we're seeing this already. You just, in certain parts of the world, just unbelievable atrocities going on. And then people, to escape these type of regimes, it's said about Bhagavatam, they're going to go to the mountains, into the forest. But now Kali Yuga has already decimated the forest. Last year in India, there was this horrific flooding up north. Thousands of people were swept away in this flood because we need the rains came. But because of overforestry, mountain after mountain had been deforested, logged. The trees were removed, and the mountains were left without any substantial roots in the soil to hold the soil. There was nothing growing there because, there was logged. And so these great devastating floods came. So there was no forest. And then the mountains are being blown up and pulled apart by people looking for gems and minerals and different commodities that are within the mountains. I come from the state in America called West Virginia, and it's actually a very mountainous state. But they practice this really horrible, brutal thing called mountaintop removal. They try to say it in a nice way. Well, what it means is they go in with dynamite, a huge, massive amounts, and they blow up the mountain so that they don't have to dig so far to get whatever it is that, the coal, the minerals, and the metals, and whatever it is they want to get out. So if you're driving along the roads, the interstate roads there, to some extent they try to disguise it by the roads along the interstate, which is like big, nice highways. You see the mountains, if you take an exit and go on a side road and go just a few hundred yards, a mile or two, then you see the reality. There aren't mountains, they're all blown apart and they're just, rubble and rocks. It's a real mess. And it's not just that the mountaintops get blasted out, then the streams are polluted by all this stuff with their, the mining, the strip mining and the digging for, now they have this wonderful thing, getting natural gas. Okay, wonderful natural gas, but what they do to get the wonderful natural gas is just horrendous, and it involves pumping millions and millions of gallons of water into these big holes, shafts that go even to 1.5 miles into the ground. Millions of gallons of water filled with chemicals, toxic chemicals. So then they have to pull it out again, and then it gets, it's unbelievable. So we talk about nature, we talk about beauty, but there's just like this whole perversity to destroy it. So even as Kali Yuga advances, there won't even be the forest to go to. And if you go to the forest, if there happens to be some little tree left, the streams will be all polluted. And you need water to subsist. When we were kids, people my age, generation, you could drink out of a stream. Because I remember going to my grandmother's. We would play in the woods. She lived in a rural area. When we were thirsty, we'd just go to the stream and drink water. We never got sick because there wasn't anything being added to the streams, So this is some of the glories of the Kali Yuga: famine, drought, cold, heavy winds, like typhoons and hurricanes, and 2 tsunamis, rain, snow, and then quarreling, disease, thirst, and the best of all, severe anxiety. Now devotees, many of the preaching devotees, they give classes and they can attract people, not by saying, come and hear about the glories of the Supreme Lord. They'll say, anxiety relief or stress relief. Of course, they're going to speak from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. But because people are in such anxiety and such stress, so you tell them, we'll give you some relief. Come here and listen, That's how you have to catch them. And then the Bhagavatam says that the maximum lifespan is 50 years. So some of us have already outlived our Kali Yuga lifetime. But I remember in 1967, in class by Srila Prabhupada, I was describing all this, and we were just sitting there. I remember kind of looking, what is this? Just seems so amazing. I looked around the room, and we're all these young little babies, you should see the pictures, you know what I mean. Just so. And our mouths were listening to that. And then he said, and if someone lives to be 30 years old, they'll be considered a grand old man. So, Hare Krishna. Reduced in size, religious principles all gone, and the Varnashram destroyed, and the Vedic path forgotten. So, this is, the unfortunate life of Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada mentions it here in this, with regards to one of the more abominable, as he calls, most degrading practices. He didn't use the word abortion, but that was what he was referring to, that, killing the children in the womb, so the child never even, sees the light of day. So in 1966, in a letter he wrote from 26 2nd Avenue, got this, he's writing back to India, and he mentions, he goes, the general people, he's describing the citizens of America, the general people are all intoxicated and loafers. It is very popular to impregnate women and then take them to the doctor and give them an abortion. This is common. They have no lamentation for this. When I read that, I was thinking, God, it is such a clinical activity, and there is no lamentation. Not even feeling the slight bit sorry for the, atrocity. So Prabhupada said, you cannot imagine from there, meaning here, how difficult it is to make them accept good sadhachar, behavior according to the scriptural injunctions. said it is so much mercy from Srila Prabhupada that this kind of low-born national people are taking up sadhachar. So referring to his fallen disciples. They're giving up illicit relationships with women, intoxication, marijuana, tea, coffee, everything. So all the things, the ingredients that contribute to the degraded atmosphere of Kali Yuga. And they've given up meat, they're eating dal, chapati, and rice, and they're very happy. They do kirtan and harinam every morning and evening, and they do sandhya before Srila Mahaprabhu's picture. To honor the Guru Varga, as soon as they see me, they pay obeisances. He said, I never expected so much. You know, they're not foolish or inactive. Some are MA and BA, and they're earning 3,000 or 4,000 rupees per month. Most of them, at least 2 of them, are giving all of their money. Otherwise, it's not possible to spend to beg here. You know, so like here, I don't even know if we do it here anymore. The brahmachari would go out door to door, you know, take some alms and then bring them back to the Guru, and that way the ashram would be maintained. But Prabhupada realized that you can't do that in America, you know. So students were working and donating. At one point in San Francisco, in the very early part, 67, so we had our little storefront and people were coming, but money wasn't following them because our hippie background meant empty pockets, no bank accounts. None of us had a bank account, practically speaking. So Prabhupada suggested, well, the brahmacharis they're living there, they should get jobs. According to whatever ability they had, they should get a job, and they all did it. Vrindavan Krishna Goswami, he had a job. You know, Guru Das went out, you know, my husband Shamsundar was doing things, Mukunda was working, and people were bringing their money, you know, the brahmacharis gave everything. The grihastas, we were giving what they could, you know, just to maintain the temple. So the Prabhupada said, you know, so he said it's not possible to run a mutt or a temple if money does not come from earnings. Here it's not possible to go door to door to bake rice and flour. Just without notice, you can't even go up. You know, to meet any gentleman, it's necessary to make an appointment first. So he said, along with all this inconvenience in this faraway foreign country, I'm working alone helplessly. My only hope is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I have no one else. So this is also our situation, that Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj, we have no one else. And we are beggars. We may not be begging for rice and dal, chapati, some money, but we are begging nonetheless for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Guru Parampara. That somehow or other we don't fall back into a degraded condition and again take shelter of Kali Yuga. In my conversation yesterday, one of the devotees was pointing out with this verse, and considering the situation that Krishna is not, you know, so these people, they're in this heavenly planet, they're having these prolonged period of sensual enjoyment. Because Krishna is not envious, because he's allowing this to go on, he's allowing this enjoyment. So just, you know, you could stop it, but no, let them play out, you know. Not that he's thinking that's a great idea, but let them finish that, you know, that itch. Let them satisfy that itch, and then they can come to me. Anyway, Prabhupada put so much hopes on all of us for this movement. He wrote in this other letter, he was saying there's 15 educated boys and they've just accepted discipleship from me. And they've given up. Then he mentions of wine, meat, intoxication, marijuana, tea, coffee, eggs, etc. And they're honoring Krishna prasadam given by me every day. And we know what it means when he says given by me every day. He was doing the shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, the serving. He was doing it all. There was a reference the other day in class to this one devotee, Mahapurusha, who stayed behind after everybody had eaten and gone. Some of them, they would just dump their plate in the sink, some would leave it on the floor. And he was observing this, and he thought, the only one here is Swamiji. And he realized he was doing it all without any help. So he said, may I help you? Can I help you? He told one devotee that Prabhupada said, kind of like a comment, as I thought you would never ask. So he said they never knew how to take dal, chapati, rice, spinach, milk, and fruits, but now by eating such prasad, they're quite happy, and they're always attentively doing their service. And then is the part, therefore, when these young boys are fully ready, vast preaching will take place in these Western countries through them. I always remind them that I am old. And he goes, at any time, I may have to say namaskar to Yamaraj. So you all try to understand this Krishna consciousness philosophy correctly. So even though this was like in September of '66, even though there was, not seemingly so much solid ground to build on, Prabhupada was having such great hopes and such great vision. So next year is that wonderful 50th anniversary of the founding of ISKCON, because in 1966, the actual corporate institution, some people shudder at that, but there has to be some formality, there has to be some organization. Prabhupada said you can go out and preach on the street corner, people will listen or not listen, had a nice conversation and forget everything. There has to be a place to bring people to, and books. There is no other institution that I have found that has such a wealth of knowledge between the covers of books as ISKCON. It's simply amazing. Okay, there's this society that prints books and only the Bible, and they distribute them like anything all over the world. Every 2 seconds one Bible is called Gideon Society. Every 2 seconds a Bible is going out, and that's fantastic. But that's the only book that they are in general in contact with. And we have these libraries upon libraries of books of knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in over 100 languages. Last year I think it was 126 languages, and I know more are coming. Simply amazing. So it's a milestone year, 50 years. Because everybody knows we've had some big ups and we've had some big downs. We've had some smashes and crashes. But Prabhupada established a firm foundation. And just a little effort to remain connected strengthens that foundation. So it's worth taking note, 50 years. It's a short time when you think about the eternality of life, but it's a long time from where we started, and there's 10,000 more years to go. So it's a wonderful observation that will be happening next year, and it's not a globalized type of thing where there's a central office like during Mahaprabhu's when they had this thing in the 90s, where they had a central office. Now it's like every region, every temple, every Nanhat, every Bhakti Chakra, That's a reference to Yudhishthira Radhadasi from San Diego, who just arrived yesterday. And they're doing this fantastic preaching in San Diego. Wonderful. They have a Bhakti Chakra group. So every one of these aspects of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON should be thinking, what can we do next year to show people that, ISKCON's alive and well and we're part of it, so this type of thing. So it's starting actually this year, because why? August of '65, Srila Prabhupada entered the Jaladuta, climbed up the side of the gangplank, got on the Jaladuta, and he left India. And he crossed the ocean. He was describing that crossing, and it's simply amazing. He was saying, I crossed 12,000 miles in a ship. I became sick. I crossed the Bay of Bengal, the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Atlantic Sea. I passed through Asia, Europe, and Africa. I crossed all these oceans and seas and became so sick. Due to my request, they gave me vegetarian meals on board, but I couldn't take them, and I fasted continuously for 8 to 10 days. I suffered terribly. That was just trying to get here. So he established, so that was, leaving India. That was all before he got to America. He said, in Port Said, the captain bought him a little hot plate. He said, if he hadn't done that, I don't know what I would have done. He was able then to, Prabhupada says, you dress for others, you cook for yourself. And particularly when you're sick, that can hold true. So then he arrived in America, September of '65. So this year is the 50th year of his departure and his arrival to America. And then next year, 2016, is the celebration for the establishment of ISKCON. And there's one more that hasn't got on the map yet, and I have to do something about that. It's 2017. So you know what that one is? 50 years of Rath Yatra festivals. That's a big deal because, Prabhupada is that, there we were, just, like these kids in San Francisco with our little, idealistic, we didn't know what we were doing, but Lord Jagannath had appeared and we really loved him, and we took him on the first Rath Yatra was in July of '67. So 1967 will be, and now there are Rath Yatras, it's just unbelievable. I saw a chart recently, and it had little marks where all the Rath Yatras were, and it was amazing. All over the world, so many Rath Yatras. In the state of Florida and USA, they have 14 Rath Yatras in different places. There's some real Rath Yatra bhaktas there, Rath Yatra acharyas, they love it. So I hope all of you will kindly consider the 50th next year and make some plans. If you don't live even near a temple, then in the temple of your home, you can make some plans, tell people, get articles out in local newspapers, Harinams, more Harinams, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And sorry that I couldn't say so much about this verse. It was like a little bit beyond my comprehension. Hare Krishna. I hope nobody has any questions, because I doubt that I could answer them.